Hi everyone, my name is Wes. I was a teacher for 5 years and an administrator for 2 in Dallas and DC.
And my name is Daniel, and I was a teacher for 9 years in the UK and internationally.
Today, Daniel and I are going to talk about a topic I'm sure that came up in your summer PDs. It's differentiation. What is it? How do you do it? First off, let's talk about what differentiation is. Very simply put, it's how to make your lessons accessible for all your students. Now, this comes within 2 subcategories. It's the different learning styles of students, which are visual and kinesthetic and auditory, and also the different levels of students where it comes to, you might have a student that's below grade level, right on par at grade level, or above grade level. So Daniel, how do you account for differentiation in your lessons?
So the key thing here for me is to not overcomplicate things. Differentiation doesn't have to be really difficult. Let's take questioning as an example, that class discussion that everybody is familiar with.
Okay.
You're recapping a thing that you've just learned in your classroom. Think about different ways that you could do that activity. So it doesn't just have to be back and forth between you and the students. You could make that more kinesthetic and more visual by perhaps giving students mini whiteboards and then questioning the whole class. Everybody's contributing at the same time, and also they get to use their hands, they get to hold something up and look at each other's answers. You could also do something called the 4 corners, which is where you have A, B, C, D in the corners of your classroom, and you have different options for the questions that you ask them, and the students move around. You have to have good classroom management, and you have to be able to trust in your ability to manage the students in that class effectively, but that's a really good way to get students up and moving and engaged and interacting in the class. On that point of questioning, also think about the types of questions that you ask students. Using Bloom's taxonomy, hopefully you've come across this before. Bloom's taxonomy is basically a way of thinking about different skills that you're introducing to your students. At the very basic level, you have the most simple tasks, which are recalling facts and ideas and information. Further up, you have ideas such as describing a situation. You have explanation and analysis. And then towards the top, you have creativity, synthesis. And you can use those ideas within your questions as well, pitching different types of questions, getting students to recall, getting students to describe, getting students to explain or analyze a situation. All of those can be woven into your questions and into your tasks that you do for students. One of the other things I want to talk about really quickly is to do with extension activities.
Okay.
We all know that it's important to make sure all your students have something to do throughout your lesson. But that doesn't mean creating busy work for students. It doesn't mean having something for the sake of having something. Extension tasks are really important for those students that have completed your regular classroom activities. Let's make sure that those extension tasks are building on something that's gone before, building on their prior knowledge, and again, employing Bloom's taxonomy to say, well, if your regular task was to perhaps describe a situation or analyze something that you've studied in class, maybe your extension task can be a synthesis activity, a creative activity, taking it to the next level and getting students to employ the skills that they've used already to do something new.
So you mentioned extension tasks, and that made me think of something that I used to always do for my students, specifically the students that were below grade level. I gave them a menu of these are the things that we're going to cover today, and you can choose when you are going to fulfill those. So it might be you have to watch 10 minutes of this video, or you need to read this portion of the lesson. This is great for that student that might needs to do things on their own time, and also for that student who's thinking, why are those other kids doing extension tasks and I don't get to feel special like I'm doing something on my own as well. Another thing I used were accelerated notes. So if I had a long lecture that was going to be over 20 minutes, I would write out my notes and I would put in spaces for students who were below grade level to fill in what words came up on the PowerPoint presentation here. This helped them stay with the lesson, but it made sure that they were engaged. And lastly, I also used content guides, and this was where I would give the students a breakdown, sort of like an agenda of what I was covering for the day. For some students, they literally just need to see where we're going, and that just helps them stay engaged of what's coming next. Oh, there's going to be a group activity. We're going to get up out of our seats. So differentiation can look like a variety of different ways in your classroom. The most important question that you have to ask yourself is, have I made my lesson attainable, accessible for all of my students in all their different learning styles and all their different levels of reading, math, or what have you. So Daniel, we just provided a lot of ideas, but how does a teacher differentiate their lessons within an hour planning period?
It can be challenging. I think the key message here is not to remake the wheel. You don't have to create everything afresh all the time.
Yeah.
Use the resources available to you. So for example, Study.com has lots of really accessible resources. One of the good ways you can differentiate with Study.com is to use different levels of videos. So if you've got students that are prepared to go on to the next step, learn something from a level that is a bit higher than the rest of the class, then we have all that stuff available for you. And one of the great things about Study.com subscription is that you get access to everything. You don't just need to study or have students studying from one particular grade level in one particular subject. You can really use the full breadth of our resources that are available. How can Study.com be used for learning styles though?
It's a great question. One, Study.com is filled with thousands of videos on every topic you can imagine. So for your visual learners, we have everything you need for those students. But also for those auditory learners or the folks who just need to really see the words, you can also print out the transcript of all of our videos so students can follow along that way.
So differentiation, to sum up, is all about making your lesson accessible to all the students in your classroom. It's about appealing to students of different learning styles, about appealing to all the students that are at different levels within your classroom. We have some great tips in terms of using things like accelerator notes, using content guides for your lessons, using menus for students to pick different activities. There are lots of good ideas around using Bloom's taxonomy and the way that you question students and the tasks that you have available to them. And don't forget Study.com. We have lots of resources available. With one subscription, you can access everything. It appeals to lots of different learning styles, and there are lots of ways that you can use us to help appeal to students at different levels in your classroom.